Welcome again to Solutionary TV, where we are bringing you the Ascension series. I am your host, and your co-host is joining us tonight as well, Jenessee Roy. Jenessee, hey, are we excited about this series? Oh, let's check our volume. There she goes. Say that again, my dear.
I am so excited. I'm just jumping out of my skin, ready to start this.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about our guest tonight, because while you and I have got a lot to share with our audience and we cannot wait to get their feedback and enjoy this coffeehouse dialogue more, we have a special guest tonight that is very much a part of this vein of discovery around ascension, human evolution, what our inherent trajectory is in this sphere and our experiences and how they lead into them and how we can come together as a community. Tonight, we have Joy Jackson joining us. I crossed paths with her through many of the social media and online community that is diving deep into this exploration of understanding the esoteric teachings. Joy is active, and she's really a way shower. She is an intuitive psychic medium. She is also known as the backyard mystic, and she is a tremendous follower and applier of the Law of One. The Law of One, for those of you that are familiar with it, it has been a very popular and recently adherent, channeled information and dialogue, or wisdom really, that has been applied in areas of David Wilcock's work and a lot of what he's correlated with Corey Good. So let's welcome Jenessee. Let's welcome Joy Jackson. Joy, thanks for joining us.
Oh, thank you both so much for having me. It's great to be here. Thank you.
Absolutely. This is a group effort. How can we come to a place of understanding that human evolution and what it's really about is a community, it's a collaboration, it's a celebration of our human trajectory into the multi-dimensionality that we truly are. And with all these earth changes, it could not be more exciting to come together cooperatively, let go of the old business models of the past, and really get as many people into the good news as possible. Don't you agree, Joy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. This new paradigm that we're entering into, a lot of communities that are out there right now that are centered around the disclosure movement, I really see as a precursor to the light worker movement. Mm-hmm. It's really about ushering in this new paradigm. And I really feel it's an exciting time, mm-hmm. We're just kind of holding each other tight and walking forward together. And that's really how it needs to be, I think, for us to have a smooth and harmonious transition.
I agree. And while we recognize that earth changes and political strife and even engineered diversity that, happens sometimes at the highest levels with regards to those power brokers that assume a little bit more control than would be considered benevolent on the public and have for quite some time. And we can get into those discussions if it's appropriate in tonight's episode, or we can pass that on to others that are actually interested in talking about the solutions rather than just the fear-mongering and the frustration which we all feel. We recognize that it is a time where waking up and embracing all the other pseudo-black sheep or, the weird ones in the population that have never quite fit in. And I love that you are part of that vast population that is focused on the soul ascension mastery, which we're going to talk about in a moment. But, there is a great quote that has to do with the fact that it is no measure of success to be well adjusted to a sick society. And I am very proud to be in this community instead of trying to make my life emulate the society that I think all of us with the greatest of kindness, know has been a broken system and a corruptible society for a long time, and giving everybody the new hope. So let's talk a little bit about your Soul Ascension Mastery Program. And I know Jenessee has got some great questions for you as well.
Oh, certainly. Well, Soul Ascension Mastery is a concept that came to me over the past several years, just through my own seeking, through my own journey. And it was really about trying to synthesize all the components that go into raising our consciousness, with us knowing that what we're seeing in our external world is a reflection of our internal world. The more harmonious we become inside, the more harmonious of an experience we're going to have in our physical world. And so, and I've spent many years, as I know both you ladies have, and probably many of the viewers watching, either studying metaphysics or just on their own spiritual journey. But for the people, you were mentioning, Tatiana, that for the people that this is still, they're still very much in, I guess, what you call the matrix, that it's about making the synergy between the higher mind and the heart a less complicated process, not so intimidating, that it can be, that you don't have to study all the ancient texts and all this, that it can really be something that we can ground into right away. So I'm really just trying to make it more accessible for people, that the idea of raising consciousness, seeing how empowered we really need to be. I mean, how much of what we're seeing is just a reflection of what's going on within.
Right. And, I appreciate you simplifying it and bringing it down to a much more grounded level, because for many of us, we were not studying and beginning this journey when we were already moving into this fourth dimensional, fifth dimensional vibrational shift. The resonance was not quite as agreeable. This has been a lifelong journey for me. I know it has for many. I believe that it has been for you, whether you always perceived it that way or not. I know it has been for Jenessee. We've all had our renegade moments, but the fact of the matter is, we chose to be here at this time, and we were probably really excited about it. When I do my meditations, I recognize I really did choose to be here, even though this 3D meat suit and mentality sometimes is like, get out of Dodge. I just don't want to do it this way anymore. But when you appeal with such sensitivity and heart-based consciousness, and then kind of take people by the hand gently where they are and lead the way, it grounds out the idea of they don't have to know everything. They just need to know that there's a direction, right?
Absolutely. It's really just connecting with the true essence of just who we already are. It's not about perfection, or, it's about the journey. And it is just about getting connected to the higher mind, which is just through the heart. And that ultimately is what nourishes us, what feeds us. That's really, in my view, what soul-based living is. So when I became engaged as I guess we call it disclosure activist, or, for me, it's very intertwined. It's very intertwined, because I find School Room Earth to be so intriguing, and it's such an archetypal journey. And like anyone else, when I came in to this, to this dimension, I was in survival mode, like the best of them, and it was and it was a lot of going in density, dropping out of density and going back and forth. But when it really started to become more grounded for me, it was when I realized that it's just when we need to get the mind out of the driver's seat. It's a great tool. It's a great tool. It's just a matter of getting our heart aligned and synergized with the mind, so it's driving as opposed to just us reacting to everything that's going on around us.
Yes, I've heard some of our greatest wisdom philosophers say that as a society, we stopped using our brains as the slave, and we ended up kind of changing seats and giving it the mastery position. And we really need to move back into a holistic, embodied embrace of heart, so that we can filter what we bring in that is both, academic and intellectual and, external, and really marry it with that heart consciousness, don't we, Joy?
Absolutely. Because the mind can't help it. wants to compartmentalize everything, and that's what it does best. It's really good at keeping us on task and grounding what we're trying to manifest from the higher realms into the physical world. So I mean, we need that. We need the tool, but it was never meant to be. It's kind of like with a computer. It's meant to be the software, not the actual programming
Right.
that's coming through.
Emotional intelligence is too important. Oh, I'm sorry. There goes Jenessee, please.
So I keep hearing you say the higher mind, the heart, and ground. And so I'd love for you to give us a tip of how you walk people through this, and even just explaining how we start to activate heart and higher mind to be able to feel comfortable and grounding.
Sure. And like I was saying, I'm really all about keeping it very simple when I'm working with, anyone, because it really is just about cultivating what brings us joy. I mean, it really just comes back to that. What lights us up? When you start speaking in those terms, I'm amazed at how the energy shifts instantly for people, even those that have been, in their minds, maybe are too far gone. When you ask them, what lit you up as a child? What excites you? That immediately kind of brings us into the present. It immediately starts to activate the heart. And then it starts to get the imagination going, the inspiration. So that in itself can be very transformative right away. The other being just self-care. It's very practical. It's a very practical term that we speak about self-care, but really, about getting to a point where we're no longer feeling like we need to be a martyr, especially with light workers, in order to, and redefining our measure of success. It is more about nurturing ourselves. So I try to bring people back to a point of really looking at, I'm important. How am I nurturing myself? What brings me joy? And then from there, we can really start to get to the deeper issues. But that and those two things in themselves tend to really start elevating where when I'm working with someone, where they're at. It's pretty amazing.
So, Jenessee, I know that you really resonate with that heart consciousness foundation for moving forward into interdimensionality. And where we left off, Joy, with Jenessee and I airing live from Ohio at the Walden Spa, was to remind our audience, and you're just pairing beautifully with this sentiment, we have to move into a deeper core place. The Heart Torus is known through the deep research that's been done at the Heart Math Institute to be the largest torus. And just to remind our viewers, we have an auric energy around us that can be measured, it can be perceived, it can be seen. And the auric energy is all around the body. Then there is a mind field, and then there is a heart field, and they refer to it as the heart torus. When we move from here to here, when we really, it isn't that we abandon mind, it's that we incorporate and we create something that they call heart and mind coherence. We are so much more available to ourselves first, to our sense of reflection, which helps with the integration process that's very much in alignment with this ascension concept. And then we are able to love ourselves more fully, to incorporate shadow, and then love others. So ladies, I want to open up to both of you. Jenessee, perhaps, share a bit and open up to some dialogue with Joy about where this interdimensionality really requires that heart connection.
Well, Joy, there was one thing not one thing, let me say, everything you've said has resonated so deeply and on such a true, authentic level with me. So thank you just for your vibration and groundedness that you bring to this work that you do. You can feel it resonate through every word you choose to speak. And so one of these things that you had said that really touched my heart was this mirror concept. And one of the things that Dr. Tatiana Irvin and I had discussed was people have this, it's almost a resistance to seeing the reflection of themselves external. And I love that you had tapped right into this and you said how I how I begin to show people maybe some of what they're holding on to, or some of what's not allowing them to fully embrace that heart center, is this mirror of what's being created outside of them. So I would love to hear more about how you talk about this with people, or what some of your processes are around this.
Sure. Well, when I'm working with someone, it's one of the most important things I like to bring up right from the get-go is that frequency precedes form. So what we're emanating, what we're feeling is what we're seeing in our external world. It's not the other way around, which is what the mind tends to do. We often tend to seek our answers out there, right? And it's really the other way around. And sometimes that can feel, that doesn't feel intuitive to the mind right now, especially in this transition to third density to fourth density. We're still just learning, we're babies. and we really do need the gentleness that we would take with a child, with ourselves. I really believe in that. It's, the patience, the love, and the caring that we would show, a child that is just learning to walk, we really need to be showing to ourselves. And when we do that, it's amazing how we shift, and then our vibration shifts, and then things just become more harmonious in our reality. And it is a practice. I realize that this, creating a synergy to the heart and the mind, it's a muscle memory. For many years before I became a professional sidekick, I worked in the financial industry for many years, but I moonlighted doing things that I enjoyed when I realized that wasn't what was going to nourish me. And one of the things I chose to do was I was a personal trainer, but I was always very focused on the holistic end of health and wellness. But one thing that I really observed is that it's a beautiful mirror when we're physically working out and exercising. It's the same process that you can translate to spirituality. It's the more that we say, for example, meditate. For a lot of people, it's a very challenging thing to just quiet the mind down. And what I tell people, it's just like with working out. If you want to really have lasting, sustainable change, for it to become intuitive and to feel good, you just slowly introduce yourself to it. It's a little bit each day is going to go a lot farther than doing a marathon on the weekend. If you were to just kind of sit on the couch and eat Cheetos and do nothing else, and then the weekend, you're a weekend warrior, it's better than nothing. Don't get me wrong, but it's not going to build the muscle memory, the intuitive connection that we're seeking to the higher mind. So it is about just becoming aware, first of all, that it's a practice, and it does get easier. The more that we connect the two, it will become more second nature. Or just like driving a car, the first time you go to drive a car, it's scary. It's scary, and there's some bumps along the road. But flash forward a few years later, you don't even know how you got there. You're just driving. So to me, building that, connecting that synergy to the heart and mind it's the same. It's the same process.
So ladies, we have so many. I'm sorry to overspeak you, Joy. We're doing our best to coordinate three voices in a perfect resonance, right? And cadence. But knowing how educated a lot of our viewers are, many of them are familiar with the Law of One. Many of them have been following a lot of Gaia TV's productions. They're familiar with what's going on with David Wilcock and many of his shows, and correlation to Corey Good, and how they used Ra's Law of One. Again, that being owned and acknowledged by the Blue Avians as guardians of our planet. For those of you that don't know what I'm talking about, do a quick Google. It will come up beautifully. This is big, highly searchable content, not so far out there in woo-woo. It's gotten really excitingly mainstream. But let's talk about how you apply your soul ascension mastery model to the Law of One. So those that are saying, hey, we've heard service to others instead of service to self is one of the biggest and the first steps in that direction. But once we launch from there, tell us some of the next steps that you move into, Joy, and then we might open the phone lines and take some some callers and possibly, hear what's going on in the chat room. But let's get a little deeper for the folks that really are not novices to this idea and they're really eager to get into the heart of it.
Absolutely. I'd be glad to. The law of one, and as it's taught by Ra, and as I understand it, is the governing principle of the density that we're moving into.
Mm-hmm.
And actually, as Ra teaches it, and this felt true for myself as well, there really is one spiritual law. And I mean, a lot of practitioners may see it as there being a subset, of like at least 12 spiritual laws, but really the law of one is what grounds everything.
Mm-hmm.
Because we are one consciousness. We are everything that exists is all interconnected. So really what we're moving into in fourth density is the awareness of our connection as a collective, not just with human beings, but in our universe.
Mm-hmm.
And to and just to go back a little bit with the law of one of the beautiful things I love about this work is that it creates a beautiful framework. And like I said, I'm all about simplicity, and it was just, it's like I just put up a big whiteboard, and most people that I know that have taken the law of one, and if they just take it in little nice bits and pieces that are digestible, before they know it, they have a remarkable framework to hang their hats on with spirituality and the schoolrooms that we're working through. And because it's really about exploration, I mean, it's our universe has multiple layers just for us to explore and really to play.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, this is supposed to be a fun journey. It's a co-creative journey. And so with coming back to the law of one and the raw material, I think synchronistically it came at a perfect time, where we were ready. We were actually wanting, I think, I think we called it in. We were ready to really start connecting where we fit,
Mm-hmm.
and asking these bigger questions.
So there is the reference, if I'm quoting this exactly right, and Joy, feel free to correct me. Ra refers to us as the body, spirit, mind complex, something right along that. Does that resonate with you? Does that sound right?
Yes.
And what Jenessee and I got into in our Monday's discussion when we launched Ascension series is, what does that really mean? Now, it sounds like a lot of words, and from a scientific mind, and even from someone a little bit more, preliminary, it sounds like, well, you're trying to grasp the idea that we are spirit, that we are mind, and maybe we share mind field, and scientifically that's been proven, and we are living in these physical bodies. But what we got into for the understanding of what ascension really is that we are interdimensional beings already. It is not that we are just ascending from third density into fourth density, but rather we are embracing, reconnecting, intertwining our multidimensionality into consciousness as we exist in this 3D, which ultimately kind of transcends us from that 3D perspective or focus and allows us to recognize and remember the totality of what we are. Is that resonating? Does that feel correct with your understanding of the law of one?
Oh, absolutely. It's very well said. It's about becoming, I look at it as we're on a full spectrum, like a rainbow.
Mm-hmm.
And when we drop in the density, we're maybe only getting, a slight, we're not getting the full picture yet, but it's all there. And there's no limit to how fast or, we can awaken to this multidimensional nature that is inherently who we are.
Mm-hmm.
And Ra talks about this as well. And the social memory complex, just to simplify it, mind, body, spirit, it's really, and sometimes I know, Ra even mentioned sometimes language can get in the way.
Yes.
And they were concerned about that because, they realize our mind wants to, again, compartmentalize the information. And so they tried to give it in very digestible pieces. But absolutely, it's about awakening to all these other layers that they're already there, already accessible to us. It's just reawakening to what we already inherently are.
Mhm.
We are powerful, multidimensional beings that have limitless potential. And they know that once we awaken to that, the acceleration process is amazing. You know,
Mhm.
it's really, once we awaken, it's just removing that spiritual amnesia that we choose to come into in third density, because it deepens our learning. Just like, the teacher wouldn't give you all the answers before the big exam, because we wouldn't really get as much from that, versus third density really is that intense schoolroom where we can really play and just see, get some relativity. It really helps deepen our understanding of the law of one by the
Mhm.
time we get there. um, or helping those that maybe haven't had as many experiences in the third density experience as well. For someone that's maybe dropped, maybe some of us have kind of graduated on, already, kind of, in other words, it's kind of like being a student teacher. Maybe some of us have already kind of gone through all these levels, but we're coming back to kind of just help usher in the new wave, the new generation, so to speak, as student teachers. Um, and in the process, we're facilitating the process for them. We're helping them, but we're also, again, deepening the experience for ourselves.
And that's not to be lost. Jenessee, why don't you take the reins on this one? There has been such a spectacular way with which Jenessee is synthesized, and I know is why Guidance wants her involved in this series. And I'm so profoundly pleased that she's here. Loving being human. This is a revolutionary concept amongst light workers and light warriors that are exhausted with what it has been to carry the torch, to feel persecuted, misunderstood, black sheep, maybe being targeted by an elite force that misuses mainstream media and power brokers' control, and has been involved in deaths and other kinds of sabotage. I know how grim that all sounds, but to fall in love with the body again. Jenessee, let's talk about being in 3D and actually making this a much more powerful, co-creative, and delicious place to be.
Mm, thank you. Joy, I love again just how resonant everything you say is. It just goes right through me. And I feel like our paths are, of course, let's talk about the one, right? We are one another here. And it feels like you and I have shared a lot of this same exploration together. Just how you explain it, I feel like you're speaking my entire life history from beginning to end this cycle around. And in finding this deliciousness as a human, I've gone through the process that you're so eloquently explaining to everybody. It was a birth into a dense reality. And my entire uh, Earth school happened between age 5 and 21. And it sounds like you, I was born in very clear, but then blocked, or because of the density I was moving through, I didn't see clearly, and so had to learn ways. And I used the mirror technique without knowing from a very young age on how to understand outside of me what I was really creating that needed to be recognized inside of me. And then throughout my process, basically moved through this multidimensionality where I just kept stepping a little higher on the mountain every time I would acknowledge another part of my the soul wisdom or the interconnectivity of everything. It's like I would get to just go a little bit higher on that mountain and see things a bit clearer, until one day I just hit a point where I was in everything. I was everything. And I could no longer look at humanity outside of me as anything separate from me. And I just loved everything from what people are labeling as density or control or whatever, negative or lower frequency, which I'd love you to talk to us about frequency. These lower frequency type densities that we can get ourselves into, or start to allow to be a part of our process. And I just would see how everything was dancing so beautifully together to help everybody just keep stepping higher on the mountain. And it made me fall in love with my life and humanity in total. And it was just such a beautiful beautiful thing. And you put me right back into that with every word you speak.
Oh, thank you, Jenessee. Oh, you're beautiful. Thank you. It's as you were speaking, I had this visualization as you were going up of the spiral. You know, as we're ascending. Often when we're in density, we're incrementally going up as we learn new lessons and we're connecting and we're becoming more aware of more of who we are. It is like a dance, and it is cyclical. It's not really a linear process, which the mind loves linear things, but because often, I'll go through a lesson in life and, I'll get so much from that, but it does repeat itself. But each time you just get a little deeper and a little deeper. And for myself, that's really what the ascension process is. And it is interesting too with the, as we call it, the lower density energies that we're ascending out of. The beauty and the gift in when we're doing our own inner work is that as we're connected and the more connected we are, despite what's going on in our external reality, say, for example, we're going through this beautiful process, but maybe our neighbor's not quite feeling it, you know,
Mm-hmm.
that it really does give us that calm and chaos. In other words, we can then be in the position of the observer. We can see what this theater is really offering us. It's because I do when I see these things playing out, in the mainstream media and whatnot, and it is very easy to get sucked into the fear because it's really just where the light hasn't reached yet. We can look and go, oh gosh, I just, and that's it right there. It's the more that we are working on ourselves internally, the more we're realizing this is all interconnected, that these, this is my circus and those are my monkeys, you know, you know, it's when we take a little more ownership, and I think we are moving into, I like to call fourth density kind of the paradigm of accountability.
Mm-hmm.
In other words, we're really accountable for what we're bringing in.
Yes. Yes.
And,
May I speak to that, Joy?
sure.
Some of those that are the closest to me, and we're not big on profanity here, but we're also real human and real. Those that I work through this process of what does 4D feel like? How are you picking up on other people's thought forms? Can you feel their emoting when they are speaking to you and it being out of continuity and out of honesty with what they're actually saying? You can feel that they're not telling you exactly what they're actually resonating with in their heart. I'm calling it the no bullshit zone that we're moving into with 4D. It is going to be a crash course for many. It has been so for me, where someone is ready to finish your sentence as it's coming out of your mouth, because that grid that Jenessee and I spent so much time talking about last week, that connectivity, that beautiful network that is that one source code for which we're all a part, Joy, that I know you've touched on, it forces us to acknowledge that what I say, what I think, what I feel, how I run my energy will always affect everyone around me and everyone into infinity. But let's take a look at how we're going to run the energy, because the truth is, if we're going to play with the law of one tonight, and I think that that's a great starting point, the first concept is what? Service to others. Well, where have we heard that in esoteric and religious philosophy? Because it exists in both. The great commandment is to love a divinity, and in that serve a divinity, be aware of a divinity, be in reverence and connected to a divinity, and then love your neighbor as yourself, love society, love humanity, love everyone around you. Well, within this human construct, we have families. Who triggers us more than our families? Who triggers us more than our spouses, our partners, our live-ins, our roommates, our ex-spouses, our children, the stepchildren? Who triggers us more than the people that are the closest to us? So, ladies, I want to open it up to both of you. You're living in the world. You have people that are close to you. How would you frame for our audience how you would better support and give them steps and literal framework to be able to stay lucid during this no bullshit zone, where they really are picking up on things and maybe they sometimes want to say it and aren't being reflective as quickly? How do we navigate so that we're not triggered anymore and we really move authentically into service to self and higher principle?
Well, I was just going to mention that when you were speaking about service to self, I mean, service to others, I'm sorry, that often, and when I'm working with people, the one part of that that I really like to emphasize is that does include us. That it's service to others is also service to self. And when you get into the raw teaching, you kind of see how they're very intertwined.
Yes.
So it's, I think we're coming also out of a paradigm where, especially with light workers, we felt we're kind of dragging everyone along. And it's almost that martyrdom kind of kept playing into it. In other words, if we're
Mhm.
being service to others, there wasn't enough focus on nurturing the self, you
Right.
know. And then as far as family and whatnot, and seeing, I mean, relationships are just our best, most magnificent mirrors. And when we can, and they actually teach us how to not only serve them, but how to serve, how to nurture ourselves inherently by when we are nurturing ourselves, when we are really giving to ourselves, that inherently is giving to the collective, that is giving to the family, that has such a powerful ripple effect. I can't emphasize that enough,
Mhm.
that it's not so much about servitude in that, what you're doing for them, but it's what you're showing them as a way shower just by embodying the frequency you're here to ground and
Right.
teach.
Not self-deprecating, correct,
Right,
Joy? Not to our
right,
own annihilation, and
right.
not to the point that we are allowing ourselves to be cannibalized. And I have to just speak to that as a mother of 5, a grandmother to soon to be 3. I am with husband number 2. I'm a very humble human that is writing as a light worker, light warrior, but definitely humble enough to realize I'm still refining my process. Um, if we do not care for the vehicle, personality, body, mind, and spirit complex, and realize my soul may be very clearly aligned with its multidimensionality, but I have to be kind to the vehicle I'm riding in or the address that I am speaking from and projecting from. And if I neglect her, she's going to get sick. She's going to carry too much chaotic energy. She's going to start shutting down her systems because her, and I know speaking third person is bizarre, but I want our audience to get this. If you think that you need to give away all of your power for the betterment of others, you will sooner or later trade out your vehicle's energy and its power. And you will realize that you factoring yourself in the vehicle you're embodying in is essential just to not perish because of a displacement and a lack of reciprocity. Ladies, do we want to speak to this a little bit? And I'm going to open up the phone lines just in case anyone's got a wild hair to interrupt us further. 919-518-9773. This is a group conversation. 919-518-9773. All right, Jenessee, Joy, what are your thoughts on this?
I love this. And I would say both of you are nail on head with what I feel as well. It's you have to be in complete harmony and balance with not only yourself and taking care of yourself as much as you take care of every relationship and then have service to others. If there is one hair out of balance between those two dynamics, that's where we're going to break down, whether it be, moving into to ego or the mental field because too much is focused on the self, or if we lose grounding in physical body awareness because it's too much outside of ourself. So I completely agree. And something that I used as a tip or trick when I was going through this was detached acceptance. So everything that's surrounding us in this world, we can't expect to have control on anything outside of us or even inside of us. It's about finding that flow and finding the acceptance with everything. And when we can detach our expectations from not only ourselves and what our flow needs to look like, and then detach from externally expectations over others, then we can find this beautiful harmony or back to the dance.
Mhm.
And things just become easier. Things seem to integrate more fluidly.
So, letting go of expectations, how would we tell our audience, Joy, then to co create their their relationships, their world, their goals for themselves, and do it harmoniously with others if we detach. Do you have some thoughts on that?
I do. I do. Keeping in mind that form follows frequency. So the more the more that we're focused on how we're feeling and what we're emitting, in other words, the most powerful service we can have is to always be in alignment with what is coming from our heart and what's bringing us joy. I think that almost every relationship we can speak to, whether that be in our career, whether that be with children or family or friends or in social media, often we get locked in fear. And I see this a lot in the disclosure communities because there's a lot of focus around ascension and cycles ending and a harvest, and are enough of us going to make the cut, and I think there's been some of it's been lost in translation in that there there's no limit to what we can accomplish individually.
Hmm.
And our awakening is not contingent on what your neighbor's doing or what your brother's doing. It When we truly begin to cultivate what's filling us up, that will transform every relationship, every experience that we're having,
Hmm.
and what like Rob refers to as the illusion. It's we're completely writing the screenplay. It's so if right now, for example, if someone were having a very challenging experience right now, say like with a parent or whatnot, instead of putting the focus, because often we tend to think that we have to kind of force things to work and we have to drag people along with us, when ultimately all we're being asked to do is just to let go of that resistance and just to reground into who we are.
Hmm.
And again, that just comes back to and I'd like to talk again, again, I bring up the inner child a lot, but it's because the inner child is often, that is our heart, that is where we'll find that power that really will transform everything that we're experiencing into a more harmonious, happy, and joyful life.
Hmm. Hmm. I know that my experience, Joy and Genesee, in relation to this, because I think it's so important that we be very vulnerable here. We can be way showers, we can be educated, and we can be articulate. But for our audience's sake, we have to go through the same human trials and the
Yes.
stumblings and the, oh, wow, I'm so much further behind than I thought that I was. I've been doing this my whole life. And I mean, name a book I haven't read. And this isn't bragging. This is just how ravenous I was
Yeah.
to make sense out of this world and sense out of the lack of filters that I had as a very intuitive young person that could see auras and see spirits around people and thought forms and feel their energy, and went, I feel hot wired. I'm not comfortable here. So I thought I'd done
Mhm.
enough work. And in a recent healing retreat where ayahuasca was one of the methods of use, and everyone's got different feelings about plant medicines. I happen to believe that they were a gift to the planet and used appropriately with setting and intention can be absolutely transformative on many levels, from mental health down to spiritual acuity. But I was shown that I had neglected aspects of my inner child, or the little, T in me. And that if I didn't go down into the reaches of my body where there was shame and there was ridicule and self loathing, I was going to manifest cancer. I mean, it was crystal clear. The vibration you're ignoring in the regions of your lower sacrum are destructive. You have done all this other work, but if it's time to go into a deeper layer, it's time to integrate some shadow, it's time to integrate some really, quite honestly, some cognitive dissonance that I had in my full multi-dimensionality. And it was so humbling. It was so humbling. So we do realize we have to take care of self, and we really need to do it well, or it will check out if we are not paying attention while we're upgrading to being aware of others and their own processes during this ascension time period.
And I'm glad you mentioned the shadow self. I'm glad you brought that up, Tatiana, because that you know when we've been in this matrix as we are. I mean, we've had experiences that were traumatic, or just have we've been running certain programs,
Mm-hmm.
and especially I also like to speak to physical trauma. Things that are somatically being held in the body. Those things can take a little more to get released, and that's where just being gentle with ourselves, because I think, and I find this particularly with self-help professionals or mothers, or people that are really in service, tend to be very hard on themselves. But I think we all are.
Mm-hmm.
I think we get so hung up on how we got here, or that we weren't smart enough to figure it out, or gosh, we spent way too much time beating ourselves up. Because I look at it where, if you were speaking to a young child, and let's say they're trying to learn a new task. I mean, how you nurture and bring the child forward is you don't berate them, you don't punish them, you love them, and you
Mm-hmm.
show them a better way. And that's all I'm trying to help people see, is just give that same love and compassion to yourself, and it's just going to transform the whole world, the whole planet. 'Cause
Exactly. And let me
yeah.
open up the phone lines, because Joy, we've got some people in the chat room and they're enjoying our dialogue. Jenessee, we're bringing folks into not being so shy and thinking that they're going to ask a question that is inappropriate, or we would not value, and we value all of it. This is an open discussion. So I'm going to remind our callers, those in the chat room, 919-518-9773. We have about 5 minutes left before we can maintain the conversation with the trio that we have now. Jenessee, let's take this a step deeper, this integration piece. You have integrated 12 lives into one body. If you really want to feel into the complexity of your journeying in the past, how do you see for our audience that you and your vulnerability could really maintain a sense of stableness and sanity, but still be able to integrate all of that plus shadow?
Well, it was a process.
Sure.
Let's start with that. And I know the word process is another one of those 3D constructs. But it took, really, like Joyce said, it took me being willing to be completely vulnerable and say, the surrender moment. I'm ready. I'm ready to do my work, and I'm not going to hide anymore. And this was inner child. It was all led by inner child. So nail on head there, Joy. For me, it was, let's go down and do this step by step through every chakra center, and let's purge what's in the physical, and let's see
Jenessee, I hate to interrupt you, but we have a caller that really wants to talk to us. So let's welcome him on. What is his name? Amnon. Amnon's our production studio. Richie, welcome, Richie. You have a question for our panel tonight. Welcome, and thank you so much for having the courage to jump in.
Thanks for having me, guys. I just wanted to bring up the question, maybe for some other viewers, of what would be better ways for everyone to show up more for their inner child, so that they can not feel so hindered in their process to allow these inner energies to come out. I know that through some things I've learned, a good way to help is that being the adult that your inner child seeks is a good way to build that connection with yourself and to feel more aligned with yourself. So I was hoping that maybe other viewers would want to hear an elaborated version of that.
Sure.
Important. Joy, why don't you speak to that?
Sure. Thank you. That's a great question. It's a great question. And, for years, I actually worked with a lot of people in addiction recovery. And and I've been in recovery myself. And actually, this came up for me right at the beginning of that journey. Finding a way to feel safe and giving yourself permission to be vulnerable. For a lot of us, that is not intuitive at the moment. So I think that's really important, to give ourselves permission to be vulnerable and to create a space whether that be finding someone you feel comfortable with, or whether that be just giving it to yourself, but giving yourself permission to really explore, get in touch with those parts of yourself that you felt were not okay, or were not, that weren't safe to get in touch with, out of vulnerability and out of, feeling, we took on feeling that the world was a very scary place. And it's not that there wasn't reinforcement of that, at the time, because we weren't self-aware. I mean, you know better, you do better, so to speak. So, I think that's really important, is finding ways to help us feel safe, to help us feel we can be vulnerable, and then just to explore and to not judge what comes up, just warts and all. And because it's through that process is so empowering, because there was a saying in the program, the recovery program I was in, called "We're only as sick as our secrets," and whatnot. So it's just the cathartic process of allowing that to come up, and it's such a loving process just to do that, to honor it and honor it as part of our journey, to be able to get to the other side, to see what we learned from these experiences, because with the law of relativity, it gave us contrast. What to know light, to know love, we need to know fear. We need to know what that feels like. So that would be my best advice. Is just find a place that you feel safe.
And that's what our community is about, isn't it, Joy? I mean, whether it's your Facebook reach, Jenessee, it's with your programs, it's how we are all coming together on this show. And we're wanting to, again, welcome everyone to find your safe place, your community where you can ask what you need to ask, where you can share the hits that you're getting. For those that are ravenous and they realize that times have changed, we need these safe platforms where not only we're listening to the Wayshowers, but we're actually engaging with the Wayshowers. So, Richie, thank you for joining us. We're getting close to the end of the hour, and we want you to come back. You are personally invited to show up again with Solutionary TV. We're going to be airing on Thursdays and Mondays. It is in the works for Thursdays. Please look for the invitations on our social media. Jenessee, let's talk a little bit about what's coming forward with Thursday, and then we can discuss a little bit more sidelined after we round up with Joy and her telling us about our websites. But let's just introduce where we're going with this, Jenessee, because this is really exciting and it is a welcome call to everyone.
Yes, I am so excited to, on Thursday, take a deeper dive into what Joy's saying. She's opened up so much for us to explore, and tapping into the joy, pun intended. But also with what Richie said, I mean, how beautiful to have the community come on air and speak such truths. How he explained that was a way that he had engaged with his inner child, and how he started transforming shadow, it sounded like. And so that touches me so deeply, that we have this community that's out there that's willing to speak up, because like Joyce said, there is this oneness where we're all bringing through and channeling this same loving, joy-filled, heartfelt energy, but we all explore it in different ways. And Tatiana, that's one of the things that I just can't wait to take a deeper dive into, is really discussing Joy in her process more and what she's discovered. And then even what our caller said, and how he's exploring, this almost parent role with the inner child, and how that's creating healing. So all of this is just so beautiful to me, and so expansive, that we get to, again, play with all of this information.
Exactly. Joy, we really want to drive more of your audience to your work. I know that I discovered you on Facebook and other social media platforms. Would you like to tell our audience where they can find you in your internet space, your cyberspace, and some of the programs, maybe some of the offerings that you have as well?
Oh, absolutely. Thank you. Actually, Facebook is a great way to connect with me as far as the community is concerned, because I am there a lot, just because I feel that it's very grassroots, and we really need that right now. And it's very convenient, since our tribes are still a little spread out, and I know that's changing. So I would encourage everyone to find me on Facebook or on my website, which is backyardmystic.com. And, I'd love for you all to come and just join in the conversation, because I think that's really what it does come back to is, creating these spaces where we can all join as a community, feel safe to explore together.
Mhm.
And I really would love to see you all there.
Wow. Well, Joy, we are going to continue to promote your work through our social media reach and our ongoing audiences. Thank you so much for coming so raw, so real, and tender at the same time with your sharing tonight. It has been a pleasure having you.
Oh, likewise. It's been such a gift to connect with you both, and I look forward to doing so in the future. And again, I can't thank you both enough for creating this platform. And I'm just so excited for the work you both are doing, and I'm honored to have been any part of it. So again, thank you. Big love to you both.
It is an honor to serve with you. We have to step up in courage, don't we, ladies? And for some of us, we weren't really interested in being this transparent, in bringing this work together with Jenessee because guidance directed it. It was not to the exclusivity of working with you, Joy, working with others that I have seen out there. I just trust that when I get a hit, that person is going to have the next round of appeal. They're going to have the next pieces of tender wisdom that our audience needs. And so promoting you is to promote the message, is to really become whole in our purpose. So we want to thank you for that and wish you well in all of the upcoming endeavors. And Jenessee, I want to bring you back around, gal, because you are my co-host. This has been a shared endeavor moving forward. Let's talk about what Thursdays and upcoming Mondays are going to be evolving into so that we have really got the coffee house, that spiritual salon of big thinkers, big dreamers, and evolutionaries that we all are becoming in this interdimensional weaving of integration. Let's chat about it and where they can find us on Thursdays, because you have all that info.
Yes. So one of the really interesting concepts that Dr. Irvin and I had put together was a way to get the community together in a really sacred space before the shows go live. And we really want to have this intimate, and you use the words salon, coffee shop, let's just throw barber shop in there because everybody knows these are the places where people come together and create these sacred communities, right? And talk and just open their hearts and find that play and find that energy of not only the vulnerability, but the ability to be seen by the people that you're connecting to. And so we've decided to offer to this collective, this beautiful group that's here supporting Ascension series with us, the ability to log in a half hour early and to have a really integrated connection, whether that be through a guided meditation, a channel, a group read, whatever is going to come through, whatever is going to happen. We might have some of the amazing intuitives who come on as interviews, like Joy, come in beforehand and do a guided connection for everybody. Or, Dr. Irvin and I might be doing this for you, but we just wanted to give an extra piece of our soul of what makes us so happy and heart-centered every day, and offer that to this collective, and then co-create together and offer that platform to just grow each week deeper. And so again, finding this information on Facebook right now, and then we'll have all the links. You just have to go on through Dr. Tatiana Irving's Facebook or mine, which is Jenessee Roy, or through either of our websites, and you can find the link to register just for the pre-show, salon, barbershop, coffee house, whatever, fly on the wall, whatever you want to call it.
And I want to add, it will be on the Facebooks as well as our website. So Solutionary TV, www.solutionarytv.com. We'll make sure that we have active links there. And Dr. Tatiana Irvin and Solutionary TV, there's no G at the end of Irvin, but it's an easy thing for anyone to add on to. Dr. Tatiana Irvin and Solutionary TV on Facebook, and Jenessee Roy on Facebook. There'll be more opportunities for media outlets, but the goal is to validate you. Those of you that have been really doing the research and going, I am getting these amazing hits. I am experiencing this sense of sentience and oneness. I've got ringing in my ears. I'm coming up with data downloads coming out of dream state. I need to share this with somebody. I feel alone. My partner won't discuss this with me. My children always thought I was a little whack. I mean, I have these people who call me all the time going, Tatiana, I feel insane right now. What's going on? And I'm so grateful that I've got this massive community of way showers. You know, Michael Bradbury, the Earth Watchman, we had him on the show a few weeks ago. He's showing us what's going on with the shamanic resonance. Listen, folks, if we're used to 7.8 hertz and it shoots to 50 for 6 hours, if you don't feel a little suicidal, homicidal, or want to drink yourself into an early grave, then I want to know what you're on, because I need some of it. I am going to tell you right now, that kind of ping in our sentience and our ability to resonate and recalibrate quickly so that we're in homeostasis with the earth is not automatic for anyone. It takes conscious integration and a real kindness to self. So we are here to validate you. We want to hear about your experiences. We want to support those experiences. We want to create collaboration around how you're showing up. Maybe it's time for you to start your own show. Hey, listen, we don't care. There's no competition here. Trust me, if I was competitive, I'd be doing this completely differently, and so would Jenessee, and so would Joy. We are here to say the more the merrier, bring it on, join the conversation. So yes, look for social media that Jenessee and I are putting out. Look for Joy to come back and join the conversation again. See some of what we're sharing on our Facebook groups that are obvious for many of you that are looking around Law of One, Sphere Being Alliance, Ascension, lucid dreaming, all those yummy topics. Look in some of those group pages, 5D and above, prepare for change. It's all out there. We want to remind you that we're so grateful you're here. We're going to round up on the hour because we have gone over time. Jenessee, any last thoughts before we welcome our audience back for Thursday?
I'm just so excited to be with you every week, diving deeper and deeper and honoring those who are going through this process, because we need our friends. We need that validation. It's just when you can see the light outside of yourself, it makes this whole journey so much more enjoyable. So yes. Let's see each other.
Let's
every
do it.
Thursday and Monday.
All right. So I'm just going to last warm welcome. Black sheep, weirdos, gather here. I kind of feel like we're back to, being, the entrance to New York and the harbor, bring your weary, bring yours that are just ready to be accepted and loved. And that's what Solutionary TV is about. That's what Waking Up is about. And that is what the Ascension series is calling in. So in conclusion, we will see you Monday nights, 7 to 8 p.m. Come and take a look at our website. Consider, if you have the pockets to do so, to be a sponsor, to be a patron, so that we can keep bringing all of this to you and creating the family that we really are. Because together, we are the solution.
You are tuned to the Nissan Communications Network. If you tuned in too late, you can always watch each program in its entirety or download an MP3 audio file of it in the archives section at nissancommunications.com. Don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel, follow us on Twitter, and like us on Facebook. Sponsored by Telestream's Wirecast software, StreamingGear.com, Carolina Apparel, and DeltaForce.net.